This is the Gauntlet Podcast, episode 51. I'm Rich.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Kristen.
Hey, here we are. We are the Jasonless podcast for the next few episodes. So
this is our excuse for strippers and booze and parties. There should be ridiculousness in carnivals.
I did not get the memo.
Jason should be sad he missed it. Yes, cake, strippers. Don't put strippers in the cake. That's not a good mixture. But yeah, craziness. Or not. We don't have to do that.
Put booze in the strippers, strippers in the cake. I don't see what's wrong.
I like things separate. As a kid, I was always the kid at the party who was like, can I have my ice cream and a separate plate from my cake? Because otherwise my cake's going to get wet.
Did you have a plate with dividers? Yeah. Did you have the plate with dividers?
Yeah, exactly. See, exactly right.
I knew it.
You like a nice bento box type of meal.
That would be lovely. A booze-covered stripper dancing and cake just ruins everything. So...
Okay, all right. Let me steer us back on course here, everybody. No problem. So we're just going to quickly go over the new format that we're trying out here, and would love your feedback, what you think about it. We're pretty excited about it. We're going to continue with the playlist. We're going to extend that back out. We had trimmed it back to be just one highlighted game. We're actually going to go a little bit broader here and talk about more of the games that we've played since our last recording. And then we'll do some community feedback after that. So two segments. We may occasionally do a third if we're inclined, if we're really passionate about something. But the idea of doing a main topic just because that's what you do, we're going to go ahead and step away from that. Plus, it gives us some more time to tease out the playlists. You guys good with that?
Yes, indeed.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. So now we will talk about our playlist. Kristen, did you want to kick this off?
Sure. I'm going to save Monster of the Week so that Steve and I can kind of bounce off of each other because we both played that one, and instead talk about Mass Effect worlds. So I'm really excited about this one. I mentioned it last week, but Gauntleteer Scott has designed a skin for Dungeon World in the Mass Effect universe, and he's trying out some new mechanics that he's kind of interested in, and using this Mass Effect game as sort of an excuse to treat the players as guinea pigs, but in a good way, because he's been working on a game for quite some time, a full-blown RPG game, and
an RPG game.
An RPG game. I know, I'm being redundant.
When we buy that, do we go to the ATM machine?
Well, if you do, you have to
enter our
you enter your PIN number. Yeah.
Yes, the PIN number joke.
That was actually a question on one of my senior economics tests. Was like, what is wrong with the statement ATM machine? But so he's been working on this RPG for quite some time, and this is a good excuse to kind of play with the mechanics. And I'll just talk about a couple things that he's got going.
Sure. Because
we've only played one game so far, and we haven't gotten to see how everything sort of shakes out and everything works. But one of the first things that I think is really interesting is that, unlike Dungeon World, where you have maybe 2 or 3 racial choices, but in this case, Scott's actually put together an entire race sheet and then a class sheet. And so you choose the race that you want to play first. So they're all races from Mass Effect. So humans, Asari, Krogan, so on and so forth. And then you choose a class, and there are the classes that you can play as Commander Shepard in the game. So Vanguard and Sentinel, and again, so on and so forth. And then you pair them up. And it's really nice so far. I really like it because you get certain abilities based on your race and then certain abilities based on your class. So there's a lot more customization and personalization of the kind of characters that you're creating, it seems really, really cool. The first level players, all level 1s, they start off with just their racial abilities and the Dungeon World basic moves. So hack and slash, volley, you get the idea. And then as you level up, you get to pull in all these really cool abilities that you see in the Mass Effect world. So abilities that your character could have done in the games, those are abilities that you get to use in this game. It's really interesting. He's doing some stuff with leveling and skill points that we haven't really seen work out yet because they haven't been used. We haven't had advancements to the degree that people are leveling up yet, but it's really, really cool. Another really cool thing that Scott did was that he had the people at the table make the decisions for the world that your character makes in the games, which shape what kinds of interactions we're having with people.
Nice. So Commander Shepard isn't there
No.
because he or she is out busy hooking up with everyone on the crew, right?
Commander Shepard is a nice, what's the word I'm looking for? Crap. It's not crap. Monogamous. Commander Shepard is monogamous. At least in my world.
Oh, great, Kristen. Anything else about Mass Effect Worlds?
No, just excited for week number 2.
Cool. All right. Well, after several series or mini-series of games in the Saturday Morning Cartoons group with the Gauntlet, Jason ran Dog Eat Dog. Now, have you guys played Dog Eat Dog before?
Now, Dog Eat Dog, is that the one that's modeled on imperialism? Where
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I have played that before, actually. A long time ago.
This was my first time. I got it as part of one of the Epimus bundles, if I remember correctly, and I'd really not had not taken the opportunity to read through it. So it was pretty fresh for me. I knew the gist, but actually playing it was really painful and horrible and awful. Just Steal Away Jordan and Dog Eat Dog kind of exist in that same space of just buckle in. This is not going to be a terribly pleasant experience, but it's not a game you play for fun, but it is an experience that you can find interesting, and I did. I definitely did.
How realistic did you make it? How sort of real world was your scenario?
We set it in post-World War II as if it were an island that a made-up pseudo-British... In fact, we even used the pseudo-British names from the Story Games Name Project, which are awesome.
Love that book.
Yep.
Me too. I have notes in here to give props to Story Games Names Project. and so we had a pseudo-British type of empire that had taken over this somewhat backwards fishing area. And what was great is it was Donna and myself. Donna is... I had not played with him before. He's been in a few of the meetups, hangout games before. This is the first time we got to play together, and we were both playing the Occupied, and we chose very different tacks, which was neat. It felt very ensemble because his Kapu was really smart and older, and he played along to try to work through the bureaucracy to survive, and my character was young artist, and he died really fast. Really fast. Yeah.
I think the reason that it wasn't super dark when we played, but it was because the table purposely put it in a very unrealistic scenario in which you're on an alien planet, and one of the sort of imperializer roles they shared with like a fungus. So those small steps that, they remove it from our actual history. They help, Yeah.
So, Rich, what happens in that game when your character dies?
Great question. You can still frame scenes, and you can play NPCs in other people's scenes, and your character's effectively a ghost. And what's cool is that based on how the token economy works by the end, where you ended up, you do have a little bit of say as to how your character was remembered, which was a nice touch.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it plays pretty quick. Again, there were just 3 players, so we played in, I would say, 2 hours or so, and I think you could have played even faster, but we took it nice and slow because it was my first time playing. It was great. I'm glad I got a chance to play the game. But it probably goes on I have to be in a certain mindset to approach this again.
Right.
Yeah. So that's Dog Eat Dog. Let's move on. Steve, what's a game that you've played recently?
So I played Concept, which I've talked about before. Concept is sort of, Pictionary, except you replace the drawing of pictures with a board with a bunch of symbols on it. And then one player using tokens to indicate on the board what they're going for. Concept's a ton of fun. It's a great party game. It's a great game where people can just sort of come in and out. So we played that for a while, and we're introducing a couple of new people to it. And then after a bit of that, we incorporated my friend's Cards Against Humanity cards as the subject cards. Yeah. So, so I found myself, trying to get people to say things like the boners of the elderly and that sort of thing. I've done similar with Telestrations before, which is another great party game that has, very family friendly default cards. Like you're trying to get people to guess tennis or whatever, and you end up. One of my proudest moments in life is getting somebody to correctly figure out that I wanted them to say, picking my grandmother's nose in Telestrations. I had to draw a little family tree and everything. Great. Yeah. But it, but that's Telestrations. Concept Against Humanity works pretty well too. There's a bit of weirdness because sometimes there's just it's hard to get to some of those concepts. So it's definitely something where you want to draw a few cards and pick one to aim for instead of just I'm drawing this one right now, because some of those are just going to be impossible. But yeah, it's a way to spice up a game of concept after you've played a billion times.
I feel like with trying to use Cards Against Humanity cards, you'd have to just draw a square onto your concept board and label it like body parts, and just like tap that square over and over until they kept guessing body parts in order for Cards Against Humanity to work.
Yeah, there are body parts indicated as if from like one of those, wooden posing dolls that painters use, that sort of thing. Yeah. It looks like that. And so it doesn't distinguish between front and back if you're just aiming for, the crotch region. And so they had to do like crotch and then obverse. It's like a revert, like we were saying, we were of course screaming dicks. No, other way around. Oh, vagina. Yeah. Got it. No, it's, the butt. Okay. Finally. But yeah, it's definitely a game where there's just lots of profanity yelled out for long periods of time.
Cool. Kristen, what about you? You want to talk about that Monster of the Week thing you were saving?
I've been playing Monster of the Week with Steve. And so I know he's got quite a few things to talk about in terms of mechanics and what's working for him and what's not. But I kind of wanted to actually lead off with sort of a question for you guys in thinking about the game and the game experience that you want to have. We had talked about tone for our Monster of the Week game, and that two of the guys who came on Friday for our Monster of the Week game, it was their first Monster of the Week game, but they played Mass Effect with us earlier in the week. And Mass Effect had been very silly and fun, but we had mentioned that Monster of the Week was going to be a much darker tone, and that was purposeful. And we had great fun with Monster of the Week. I think, they brought a lot to the table, but it wasn't that serious sort of darker tone that we'd been talking about or that we'd sort of been preparing for. And part of that was due to Scott's setting, but part of it was also due to the interactions, between the characters. So my question to you guys is kind of quite often, how do you sort of redirect players in game if you've already had the tone conversation and people kind of aren't sticking to it? How do you make it work? How do you make it hurt if they're not, kind of following what the group had in mind?
So how to deal with breaking of tonal agreement pre-game? In a punitive way.
You went from how to make it work to how to make it hurt. Right. I like that.
Well, if one way isn't working, then maybe something else.
I'm definitely a fan of, I don't know, I don't even know if I'd say carrot over stick, but of not stick. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that there's a super easy solution aside from just a mid-game reminder of, hey, I was aiming for something a little more low-key or something a little closer to X tone or something like that.
Yeah.
It's a conversation. That's something that I learned from, Apocalypse World, and I've had that. It's not frequent because usually I'm the goofball, but there are times when I really want to kind of bring that down. When someone proposes kind of a, like a flippant comment or an inappropriate response to whatever's happened, I'll kind of stop and say, are you sure that's what you want to do? Because this is, and I'll restate, this is what's happening to your character.
Right.
Are you sure? Is that what you meant? It seems kind of silly. Like, would your guy really do that? Like, I don't want to tell you what you're... And notice I say guy, because it's usually the guys that don't get it.
Well, statistically, there's more guys than girls in our hobby anyway. So you're kind of safe on that bet.
Anyway, and so I'll ask that question, and if they double down on it, I'll probably call for a break and say, hey, listen, we talked about the tone ahead of time, and do you not understand what I meant? Do you have any questions? Like, is there anything that isn't jiving for you? Are you okay? Because it seems like you don't want to engage, and that's what we're all here for.
Wow, you know? That's heavy. That's like dad. That's a dad talk right there. That is I have disappointed my parent conversation.
It is. But I think of it like a numbers game, right?
Yeah.
If there are 5 people here, I count myself, right? Because this is a serious game, and in this scenario, I'm running it. There are 5 people here. 4 of them are signed off to a particular type of play. This one person, or possibly 2, aren't buying in. So are we going to play that game? And if I don't have that conversation with the people who aren't buying in, and I try not to call them out, right? The first time I'll openly ask, hey, what's going on? Second time, I may call a break and say, hey, can we chat for a second? And then I'll have a more direct conversation. It really frustrates me because I think that it's insulting, right? You know what? If you want to play a goofy game and we agree, we can do that next time around. But I don't know. I invest a lot into games, and when I've committed that we're going to play a serious game, I try my best to adhere to that. Now, if it turns out that the person's being goofy and other people are responding to it, as a GM, if I see the rest of the group like, okay, we're cool with this, I'll adjust my expectations. But if, as the GM, it's my responsibility to be that referee and to moderate things.
Yeah.
I'm not quite as hard line there because I think it's easy for 2 people to walk away from the same conversation about tone with different ideas, thinking they have the same idea. Especially with something like Monster of the Week, where you have, for instance, we could have a conversation and we agree that this is going to be like Supernatural. And I walk away thinking, oh yeah, first couple seasons Supernatural, couple normal dudes who, all they've got is some know-how and some willpower and
each
against, exactly, and brotherly love. And they've got to fight the push back the darkness. And somebody else is thinking latter season, oh yeah, it's just a couple dudes who've been killed a few times and come back, and then there's an angel, and then there's like a demon, and she's good though. I mean, it's cool. And then it's just there can be wide tonal shifts even from the same source material, especially when something goes on forever and ever, like X-Files and Buffy and Supernatural kind of did.
Yeah, no.
I see that, yeah.
That's a good point. That's a really good point, Steve. And I think that's an absolutely valid way to react to it.
And I think that most of the time, and certainly in our case, most people aren't trying to spoil something. They're just trying to have fun, right?
So specifically with our Monster of the Week game, we did have the conversation about tone going in, but it was very brief. Mm-hmm. It was very... I think it was literally like a sentence. We're aiming for, something a little closer to reality, a little darker. And I think that expectation is tweaked somewhat by the inclusion of caveat. I love this character, but we have a luchador. We have a luchador in the game. We do. And it's hard to take things super seriously when you have that character. And we've brought the character down somewhat in that he's got a young boy who he takes care of somewhat, and that's it. But I find that character very enjoyable. But I didn't see it as I didn't see what was happening this last time as that big a tonal violation. I think there was one exception where something was super strange, but there's a lot of supernatural stuff going on, and I didn't think too much of what was going on was out of place. I don't know.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, definitely everybody had fun, and it ended up being a good night. It just prompted that thought, that thought about, had not everybody had fun, had it been a problem, what would you do?
Right.
That kind of a thought.
A good thought experiment.
Yeah, we've all played with the terminally goofy person.
Yeah. As a player, my reaction is radically different. And I'm assuming this isn't a GM-less game where we all have that authority. But as a player, when that happens, I sulk for a little bit and then I disengage. Like, I literally, almost every time, I sulk for a little bit and then I disengage. And then I just basically go home and bitch about it. It's totally immature. It's only when I'm forced to be the GM do I do the adult thing. I don't adult when I'm playing as a player. I just play. That's all I'm here for. Cool. Anything else you wanted to talk about Monster of the Week?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So this is my third game of Monster of the Week, second this time around, the second in a row. So a few things I noticed this time around that I hadn't before. I complained about bonds last time, but we're not really using them. But at least you don't roll bonds to help or interfere the way you do in Dungeon World, so you don't have to replace that with something else. But in noticing that, I noticed that there's no interfere move in here. You can only help the other player characters. You can't interfere.
You're right. There's teamwork and there's teamwork. and you work with your team.
Right, but I mean, so much of the source material has characters confronting the supernatural and having conflicting ways to deal with it, but being very, strident in their plans, right? Like, no, we have to kill such and such. No, you can't kill such and such. They can be saved. And it seems weird not to be able to have conflicts like that in the system. It's very strange.
I hear what you're saying, but I do think that if I think of X-Files and if I think of Supernatural and if I think of Hellboy is actually like my favorite idea of Monster of the Week. But they never actively get in each other's way if they're on the same team. Like, anyone who's getting in Hellboy's way it's not Liz, it's not Abe, right? It might be that government schmuck. But then that's an NPC. Now, anything that comes to that level of conflict, you have conflict rules to you're going to roll up and punch somebody, get away from this person, don't shoot them. So I think it can be done, but you're right then that there is no subtle way to just kind of nudge something to make things a little worse for somebody rather than helping them.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking of Hellboy, actually. That's a good example of something where there is a lot of crazy shit going on, but tonally it's not goofy. But in Supernatural, I can think of examples where it comes to a head and the brothers interfere with each other because, one of them is convinced that some creature needs to die because, well, they're a creature and they're evil, and another one is convinced that that's not the case. Same thing with Buffy. Like, there are demons that aren't quite so terrible. X-Files, you're probably right. Can't think of anything where that comes up.
No, that's a good point. Although in Buffy and in Supernatural, they're very action-oriented, so you could potentially just, I'm going to throw down on you to stop you from doing the thing.
Yeah, but I mean, if somebody's already declared an action, I'm going to kill whatever. I'm going to do the thing that you would oppose. It's happening. The end.
True.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. You just don't interfere.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'll yell at you after.
So, and revisiting the subject of XP, actually, I should say, just revisiting the subject of advancement.
Hold on, I gotta get a shot glass and take a drink.
All right, good. I didn't play any. Oh wait, I didn't make note of it. I totally played a Star Wars game. We are absolutely talking about that. Okay.
Let me ask you this question, Steve, and Kristen. I'm curious too. When you play multiple sessions of a Powered by the Apocalypse game, are you looking to gain a new move for every session that you play?
No.
Not necessarily.
It's funny that you mentioned that because it's kind of one of my personal pet peeves, but it's I don't hold it against people because I understand what's going there, but I hate XP farming. I hate I'm going to replace the word hate. I really dislike it when you can tell people are doing things just to get the XP. If it doesn't fit the story, or it doesn't make sense, or it's super, super pushy, but they're doing it because they know they're going to get a checkbox, that really bugs me. I would much rather have a satisfying game and maybe level up every 2 to 3 games than have someone just XP farming so they can get the next thing on their paper. That's not what I'm looking for in a game.
The thing I don't like is when there's a huge disparity between what one player gets and another player gets. Like,
Agreed.
Like when one person gets 1 XP from a session and the next person gets 15, that's really annoying.
Yeah.
Like, I don't mind if I don't get an advance every session or even every 2 sessions, but yeah, every 2 or 3 sounds about right. But if I'm going every 2 or 3 and somebody's getting 2 per session, that's going to feel weird.
Yep. I agree. That's good.
That's what bugs me about XP on a miss, because XP on a miss it's not only randomly paced XP, but it's asynchronous. You aren't synced up with the rest of the players. It's just dependent on your luck for the session and their luck for the session. And sometimes those are at opposite ends of the spectrum, and you feel like crap when they lap you or whatever, right? It's annoying.
Yeah.
Which is why end of session XP is great, because everybody is getting sort of the same stuff there.
Yes, I like that a lot, actually. But the last bit about Monster of the Week is I really dislike that use magic is a basic move.
I agree.
I like big magic. That feels a lot like the type of magic that comes up in Buffy or in Supernatural, or, it feels like ritual magic, right? And then the use magic move as a basic move is just, it swings the tone of the game so far in a supernatural direction as to, I think, I don't know, it's too far to pull it back easily, I think.
Well, and it just doesn't make sense with some of the playbooks.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, my character is overtly supernatural. I am very weird focused. I don't think I have a single move on my playbook that doesn't focus on weird. And even I avoid the use magic move because I don't want it to feel like, I don't know. Magic in games like that sort of feels like a, how do I want to put this? It feels like a Swiss Army knife with infinite attachments.
Right.
It gets used as a tool that can do anything, and that's just, I don't know, that's boring to me. That's super boring.
Well, and it doesn't make sense. Why would a luchador be able to tell what happened in the past by using magic?
Wait a second.
He's a magic luchador?
Why would a luchador not be able to tell what happened in the past? He's a luchador.
If he could tell what happened in the past or is going to happen in the future, he should be like a stockbroker or something that would use that skill, not somebody who beats up people for fun and does flying liver chops or whatever it is that you're gonna do. I'm just saying, I don't think that's a good match right there.
We don't know everything there is to know about Papagayo. Who's to say
true.
that he's not a stockbroker as well?
He could be. He seems like he can do everything.
You don't know what's under the mask. That's what I'm saying.
That's true. That's true. Okay.
Cool. Anything else about Monster of the Week?
No. Finally.
Excellent. All right. Well, let's move on. So before we meet our quota of a Star Wars game from Steve, I will share with you that I not finally, but because we planned for it, I got to run Masks again. Have either of you had a chance to try out or see Masks?
No.
No, and I really want to, actually.
Yeah. I keep hearing good things from all corners. So many of these games, I'll hear, a bunch of good things, and then every once in a while there's somebody who's like, yeah, I didn't have too much fun with this game. Masks is just all good. It is all good. I'm going to have to break down one of these days.
It's pretty great. It's a teenage superheroes RPG powered by the apocalypse. One of the things that I like about it versus other powered by the apocalypse games is that a lot of the moves are you telling other characters what you think of them and adjusting their stats accordingly. Like you're a savior, and you can up their savior and lower their mundane. Because you're in that flexible, like, who am I really growing up phase of a young adult, that's a big part of the game. This is a continuation of a four session series that I ran during the Kickstarter just because I was so excited for it. And I decided to set it in a high school because I really love the idea of like Sky High, and X-Men Academy and Avengers Academy and Teen Titans and all these like teenage superheroes that are in a more formalized school type of setting. And I used a Hope Prep, which is a supplement for mutants and masterminds and icons, and I just basically stripped out all the stats and used some of those NPCs.
Sorry, real quick, that's Hope Prep? Oh, as in preparatory school?
Yeah, Hope Preparatory School, yes. Sorry, okay. It is a superhero high. It's a great little supplement, by the way. I highly recommend it. It's got lots of great ideas. The Melior Via is the company that released it. They released several modules, packs of characters, all with art of varying quality, but still, stuff to at least inspire you. And for this game, I had a particular challenge set before me. In the last session, which was way back in November of last year, everyone had, all the high schoolers, there were 5 player characters, they had all gone through there was a big dance that was coming this weekend, right, in the timeline. And they'd gone through the bit of like, who am I going to ask? And some of the team members asked each other, and one had like made an agreement with the other, like, if nobody asks you, we'll go together, okay? Okay, awesome. And then and then he goes out to see, like, I'm going to go talk to Katana about the thing because it's almost here. And she's being asked by someone else. And she says yes. No. Yes. Oh, it's so good. So good. Christy, you don't even know. So it was really brilliant. But the challenge for me was that the next session, the assumption is we're going to jump to the dance. The problem was that one of the players, Andrea, she's on vacation. We kind of scheduled this. She said, guys, go ahead and play without me. And I'm like, holy crap, no, because she got asked out by the alien. She has to go to the dance with the alien.
I love it.
Because that burgeoning romance has been going for all 4 sessions. Like, even from the very first session, there was just like this little bit. Anyway, so I was like, I cannot have this dance. Luckily, I had laid just a little bit of complication at the very end. So after Katana is asked to the dance, she's kind of the beaconer. Imagine like Hawkeye. She's the normal person who is very well trained but doesn't have any superpowers. She's asked to the dance and she says yes, and it's the super happy moment that she doesn't see the speedster of the team ASAP. Like she doesn't see the ASAPs for like watching this go, and then he's all crestfallen and walks away. So it's, it's still a happy moment for her. And her mentor shows up, Dave, and says, hey, listen, I've got a mission for you. You need to do this. Gather your team. Saturday, you've got this thing you have to do. And it turns out that it happens to be, the same night of the big dance. So I'm like, okay, I've got to stretch so that Andrea can show up for the big dance. And so that was, I had an entire game session where I'm like, okay, it has to be this mission. And the mission turned out that it was, short version, fight. Surprise, surprise. There's a big fight with some supervillains, and it's in an opera house. But there was a particular moment that happened in the game that was a combination of fiction and mechanics. Now, you may have seen, I already posted about this on Google Plus because I literally, as soon as the game's over, I'm like, I must type this up so that I can share this amazing experience. Kid Ragnarok is one of the player characters. He's playing a delinquent, which they're kind of shady, but they're in their heart. Like, it's part of the character creation. You want to be part of this team. And his character history was that his parents are both supervillains.
Oh.
And yeah, one's in this the Supermax prison for supervillains called the Spike, and the other one is running amok in the city. And he has kept this secret. Now, the authority of Hope Prep, the Halcyon City High School, they know this, and they've got a standing thing of like, we want to teach people how to use their powers. We want to teach them to do it the right way. So even if you come from a shady past, as long as you haven't done anything wrong, we're going to allow you in. Well, he was part of this team, and only one of the teammates actually knew the truth, and that was Pixie, which is the character that's not there. So they roll into this fight in the opera house, and Kid Ragnarok faces off with this guy who's like, his name's Strikeout. I totally grabbed this from, he's a baseball player, because I had to pick him. He's a baseball player. Anyway, he's, so Strikeout is actually, like, hitting these poisonous balls, these balls that explode with poisonous gas into the crowd. And Kid Ragnarok rolls up on him, and he's like, he decides there's a move where you can provoke someone and try to create an opportunity. He rolls to provoke Strikeout by saying, because Strikeout was a major league player who juiced, because the whole steroid area really bothered me. He's juiced, so I layered that into the character history, that he juiced and he was kicked out of the major leagues, and so they went super juicer, and now he's a super villain. So Kid Ragnarok makes this joke hey, man, you gotta...
I'm sorry. Are you saying that he got, like, transformed by steroids the way Bane got transformed by whatever venom or whatever?
Maybe I am. I steal from everything. That way everyone can be equally offended. And so Kid Ragnarok says to Strikeout, he makes a smart comment, and he rolls to provoke him. And in provoking him, he says, one of the options, I choose to create an opportunity. And so Strikeout looks over and he says, Kid Ragnarok, yeah, you're Technocrats, kid. I didn't know he sent you over here to help us out. Oh. And then turns his back on Kid Ragnarok. And so the player had always played Kid Ragnarok as, like, he always talks a whole lot of trash, like he's awesome and he's a punk, he's kind of a punker. And Ragnarok's his face just falls, and he's like, oh, so he has psychic powers, kind of like Green Lantern. He says, I make a giant fist, and I'm just punching Strikeout. Like, I have to take him down right now. And he slams a fist into Strikeout, and he successfully knocks him, off the stage, because it's at the Opera House, and of course he's on the stage, right? As Ring of the Nibelungs is going on, because I just go all out, guys. There's a lady with a horn helmet. There was a boat on stage. His giant psychic fish knocks Strikeout through the boat on stage down into the orchestra pit, and then he goes and he stands at the edge of the stage, and he's looking down at Strikeout, and I describe, Strikeout's groggy. He's slowly starting to get up, but the fight seems like it's left him. What do you do? He says, I hit him again, and I look at it. I look at the player. I'm saying, now you understand, Strikeout is he is a normal person. He's like not quite Captain America level. If you hit him again, you might kill him.
Don't be your parents, Kid Ragnarok.
Exactly. It's totally that moment. I'm so excited, and everyone's leaning forward. You can see it. It's a hangout. I can see them all like, and he says, I'm doing it. I said, are you willing to kill him to keep your secret? And there's a pause, and the player's like totally into it. And then I'll explain. Kid Ragnarok says, I don't want to kill him, but he just needs to be out for the next few hours so he doesn't say anything. They can't hear. They weren't there. They couldn't hear. I just don't want my team to know. And so I said, if you fail this roll to unleash your powers, you could very well kill Strikeout right now. He said, okay. And he rolls the dice, and sure enough, 6. And everyone's like, oh, no! I'm like, oh man, this totally would not, I did not expect this, but we made the commitment this is the covenant we're going to live by. And he looks and he says, wait. Do I still have that +1 from when I assessed the situation? And I thought, yeah, he does. I'm like, yeah, you still have the +1. So he got the 7. Yes! He got the 7, and he basically KO'd him. But here's what's so great about the rules for masks. A mixed success for unleashing his powers means that he did what he wanted to do, but he takes on a condition. And the condition, what it does, it gives you an ongoing -2 on particular moves. And among the conditions is one called guilty.
Oh, yeah.
So Kid Ragnarok picks guilty. Yeah. I'm like, man, this is just perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4. It all went in a row. It was so good. So the last few seconds of this little highlight of the AP was the security from the Opera House. They're running forward to try to see what's going on, and they're looking at Strikeout, who's like totally jacked up. The guy's been mashed into the floorboards, and they look up at Kid Ragnarok up on stage, and one of them goes, what? Are you with them? Are you one of them? And Kid Ragnarok stands there and he says, No, I'm a hero. Oh man, so good. So that was my story in Masks High School, and I just so love running this game and playing this game. It's really, really tight. Even though it's still just basic moves and a few principles that are out there right now for release, and I think that's all on drive-through. So even people who didn't back the Kickstarter can look at the free stuff. It's pretty awesome. If you know Apocalypse World stuff, you can run it.
Cool. I love that the way Apocalypse World inspired games work. A miss can mean you do what you set out to do, except harder. I want to take this guy out. Oh, yeah, okay. You murder him and also the three people next to him. That's, so long as you can justify it fictionally, I've had fun with misses like that before. I want to kill this guy with my grenade launcher. Oh, okay. I'll roll those dice. Yeah, you kill that guy. Also these three.
Yes. It worked more than you wanted kind of thing is a really great fail. I'll agree with you. Cool. So that's me talking about masks. Now let us fulfill one of our normal things that we have to do, which is Steve talking about Star Wars.
Yet another session in our ongoing Imperial Assault. We're trying to get through a full campaign, which is looking like it's probably going to be 12 to 14 or so missions. And we played through our, we got in 2. So we played through our 4th and 5th missions. So we're 5 in. I've got a pretty decent handle on how the game goes. I'm liking it a lot, is the short version. It's, as you go on and get advancement and level up, after every mission, the Imperial player and the Rebel players will always be getting experience, and the Rebel players will always get some, or at least 90% of the time, will get some credits as well, some money to spend. So there's always options for advancement, and you're always going to have a slightly different layout in the next mission than you did in the previous one. Through that, and the rules are sufficiently complex and the options sufficiently varied that I think there's just a ton of replayability in there, and it's shaping out very nicely. And I think I'm very excited to see where things go, just in general. The flip side to the complexity of the system is that I'm pretty sure in every one of our sessions, we've screwed at least one or two things up. After the most recent one, I came home and went through, there was something I wasn't clear on. It's a Fantasy Flight game, so the rule book is not perfect. It is not great. There are some things that are in a very unlabeled part in the back of one of the 4 manuals that come with the game.
Ouch.
Right. And so reading through that again, I discovered there were like 3 minor procedural things we were doing wrong between missions. It's not a big deal, but yeah, there's some tweaking we'll have to do once we come back. But I'm very impressed with the game's balance so far. We've played through 5 missions. The Rebels have won 3. I've won 2, and I have not held back on the ones they won. Like, I've never had to do the thing I've heard people complain about, where the Imperial player, takes a look at a tactical situation and makes a tactically inferior choice because they feel otherwise the players will, or the Rebel players will have a crappy time and will lose. I haven't had to do that yet. In fairness, I have made mistakes where it's like, oh, I forgot this thing I could do, where I would have punched them a little harder or whatever. But, but so far I'm really, they've play tested the crap out of this thing, clearly. And I'm really happy with the way it goes. It's a huge box and it's not a cheap game. It's an investment for sure, but you're going to get a lot of functionality and replayability out of it.
Cool.
Very cool.
All right. Well, let us move on to community feedback. I was trying to say that like Jason. Does that sound like Jason?
Yeah, it did.
Nice.
It didn't. You may even want to draw it out a little longer.
Community feedback.
Yeah, there you go. Community feedback. Like that, yeah. Kristen, we haven't heard yours. We need to hear yours.
Let's see, because Jason always tried to do the thing where he'd try and do a different voice or whatever, so he'd go, community feedback?
Inquisitive. Yeah.
Is it?
Very,
is it
very.
feedback?
That's very Kirkian. That's Kirkish.
That's right.
And now we're back with community feedback. We wanted to share a couple of things that have happened on the Google Plus community for the Gauntlet. If you aren't a member, we would love to have you. We're growing strong, and there are some cool things we wanted to share with you. The first one is from one of the Houston Gauntlet locals, Farrell. Inspired by one of our recent podcasts, Farrell went through and wrote up a document detailing some rituals that he would propose to the Gauntlet, right? Is he going to bring that up with your local group, Kristen?
He hasn't actually mentioned it. There's a couple on here. In fact, in speaking to Steve before we got started, I mentioned that some of the things on his protocol list are things that we haven't done before, but that I'd really like to see. For example, one of his game rituals is the veil, so that if you signal that you need to step away from a game, you can place a blank index card covering your character's name tent, which the creation of the name tent is also a ritual, but that you can cover that name tent, signaling that that you'd like to take a break soon, and then if the table doesn't take a break, then it's okay because everybody knows that you need to step away. I really like that because I always feel so rude just getting up in the middle of somebody's, story or what it is that they're doing. They're trying to build a moment and you get up in the middle of it. It always feels disruptive, and I really like that idea. And I love the name The Veil. I'm veiling my name tent.
Well, a couple things. One is, or maybe three things, as I was talking about in the rituals episode. I like that this functions on a silent level. Because getting up and going away from the table doesn't bug me so much, because sometimes, nature calls. But breaking into, verbally breaking into the flow of things can kind of bug me. So I like something that's silent. However, veil already means something in gaming, like lines and veils. And so maybe we might want to retool that one.
Like the concept, I agree. Maybe a different name. You said three things? Is there a third?
Probably there was at some point. There isn't anymore.
I think these are some great rituals. I mean, a lot of these I use, and some of them are great applications from stuff from Hangouts to use in live face to face, like the name tent instead of lower third. It's so great. So
I
thank
love
you
using
so much,
name
Farrell.
tents.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
People who, even if you aren't part of the Gauntlet face-to-face, you should check this out. There are definitely some things you can use.
Yeah. So some people in the feedback after the rituals episode made some good points. First, that what we were calling rituals, or at least we were using the term rituals to encompass things that are rituals and things that should probably more properly be called procedures in the game. Farrell's document incorporates both. So some of these are more procedural things like, bathroom break, note card over the name tent, that sort of thing. So just pedantic note there, but something I agree with.
I'm going to interject. I think Farrell should rename it because I love the, sword and sorcery, Dungeons and Dragons, Lapins and Lairs. And so rituals and procedures just does not feel in keeping with the theme. So I feel like it should be like protocols and procedures or,
It sounds so businesslike.
I know, but rituals and procedures doesn't have any rhythm. I need another P word.
You're right. I agree. There should be some consonants going on there. All right. Well, we'll parking lot that. But the new name. Hey, community listeners, if you have any ideas for what we could rename this thing that Farrell made that we're totally taking over to rename it. Wait, that seems not at all fair. If you have suggestions for other things we could call this rather than ritual, since pedantically that's not the correct term for the procedures that we're proposing.
No. How about Pernicious Pedagogies? That's too teachery. Yes.
It's alliterative, but there's no and.
Needed.
I think that Jason Morningstar will hug you for if you actually name something that. He loves the word pedagogue. Awesome. Anything else about Farrell's awesome rituals document?
Yes, one more thing. I have no idea what it is, but we can probably move on.
Nice. We will end up with 2 episodes in a row of talking about VR and Dan.
Mm-hmm.
We're highlighting in the community where Dan shared his first VR D&D game. Oh my goodness. You people who are listening to this. When I was reading this, it was as if I was reading a really good Slate article where someone kind of quote unquote embeds themselves into a particular experience or subculture. Oh man, the talk about this D&D game in VR was so good. Anything you wanted to highlight, Kristen?
Not in particular. I did think, one, the story is great, and nothing we say is going to sort of capture it the way that Dan does, so you just have to go read it on your own. But 2 things, because I always do things in 2s. The first is that the idea of clicking on a chandelier, a virtual chandelier, and a shower of dice coming down is magical. I love it. They should make that happen everywhere. And 2, the comment section on Dan's post is almost as good as the post itself. There's some great back and forth there, and our community is so fun. Love to see everybody chiming in. Even though I rarely show up in the Google Plus community, but I stalk everybody, and this one was really, really, really funny.
Yes.
My favorite parts of the story were that Dan gets punished for wanting to play a bard. Punished appropriately, of course.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. And then since they're playing in a public room, basically, they're playing in the equivalent of almost like a game store's back room, except where anybody can come in and can mess with things. It's VR. There's no like limits on who can interact with the pieces on the virtual board. And so it's the internet, and as a result, you get just people who are trolling the D&D game that's going on. And and the interesting ways that happens, I think, are my favorite part of the description.
Yeah.
Yes, I love the part. There's a web browser on a giant screen behind the game master. Is playing a looping gif of a man pleasuring himself. And there's more. Please check it out. It is maybe my favorite post on the Gauntlet from a humorous bent that I've ever seen. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think that's it. Listeners, thank you so much for listening in. We thank you for your support. And if you want to give us a little more support, you don't have to donate to a Patreon or give money or anything. We just want your 5-star reviews. In iTunes. That's right now. For now and here in this episode 51, I am asking for 5-star reviews in a bizarre voice for no good reason. So we would love those reviews. That's how people in the podcast aggregators can find out about us. And we can share the love because this is a really vibrant community. And speaking of community, please do join our Google Plus community, as well as we have a meetup where there are tons of games that are happening. 4 or 5 days a week in various time zones. We have Gauntlet UK that are running things in the afternoon, and I'm at work, and I'm like, dang it, I want to play that game, but that's not for me. It's for people in other time zones, so I'm not jealous at all of those games that look cool.
Yeah, me neither. Nope.
Dang it, on a Friday, too. So lots of games out there. You should definitely check them out. People are posting them all the time.
And recently, I think we have an Australian time zone friendly game popping up as well.
Very cool.
Exciting.
So people in that hemisphere, you should keep an eye out. That is the Gauntlet Hangouts or Gauntlet Meetup, which the easiest way to get to that is to join the community or just hop onto the community. You can find a link in the main information for the Google Plus community. And so that's it. Thank you so much, Kristen.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
And thank you all, listeners.
And the other was... Hold on, pause. Man, my brain is just a big gaseous fart tonight. I don't know what's going on.
There's the stinger.
What? Seriously, what on earth? What? God, what? Put words in my head. What were we talking about?